Federal Reserve's newest look at the local economy is out. It's called the Burgundy Book and offers insight on unemployment, wages, construction, banking, real estate, and more. Joining me to review the latest is Robert Hopkins, Regional Executive for the Little Rock branch of the Federal Reserve. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Let's talk about the area that's covered in the Burgundy Book. It's all of Arkansas except for the Jonesboro Metropolitan Statistical Area and the Memphis, West Memphis area, which covers a little bit of eastern Arkansas. Tell me why that is the composition of the Little Rock region.
The St. Louis Fed, one of 12 reserve banks across the country, has 3 branches: Louisville, Little Rock, and Memphis. And when the Fed was established and those branches were established, the geography of 7 states were broken up for the 8th district. Memphis got the 15 counties out east because it's closer to them, and then everything west of that is the Little Rock zone.
Let's talk a little bit about the Burgundy Book, how that book is put together, the data that's in it. It not only has statistical data, it also has anecdotal data in it. Tell me what goes into that process of putting the Burgundy Book together.
You know, the Burgundy Book came about in the mid-2000s, and the Federal Reserve System has, for a long time, had a beige book, which you're very familiar with, as I'm sure your audience, that captures anecdotal information for business leaders across the country for the Fed's monetary policy setting. And it's funny, when we've been out talking throughout the years to our local markets, that's all well and good to hear about the national economy, but people are clamoring for what is going on in the state that I'm operating in. And so in the mid-2000s, we decided to do a Burgundy Book, which drills down further into the local economies. And so we now have a Burgundy Book for St. Louis zone, Memphis, Louisville, and Little Rock.
And the report that just came out for this first quarter of this year, it's got a little bit of fourth quarter data in it as well, said that basically the Arkansas economy is improving at a modest pace. What is modest about this pace?
Well, you know, I know you have heard this from many people that you've talked to, that Arkansas doesn't boom and Arkansas really doesn't bust. And quite frankly, that happened during this most recent financial crisis. If you look at how Arkansas has fared, quite frankly, relatively speaking, we've done very well. You're seeing some significant growth happening across the country now, but those are areas that were hurt bad during the Great Recession. And in our case, that hasn't been necessarily true here, and so you're starting to continue to see the modest growth here in Arkansas, which means housing prices are continuing to improve here. Sales aren't gangbusters, but you are seeing some home sales across the state of Arkansas, and employment looks a little bit better. We had some fall off in manufacturing, which seems to be the typical story that we're hearing from quarter to quarter, but there was some growth in other areas, trade, transportation in particular. I think retail trade picked up. So it's just, and I hear this from all the contacts, my board of directors, it's just kind of steady but slow. Disappointingly, at some level, I think that it's not growing more.
We're a little bit of the tortoise and not the hare, is from the fable there. Now, I think one of the lowlights in the report was that you do see, and I think it's tied to this manufacturing slump that you're discussing, the Fort Smith area seemed to have a little bit more of a setback than some of the other metropolitan statistical areas, and they have been hit hard by manufacturing losses over there.
Right. Well, as you said, that's a continuing story. It wasn't just this last quarter, and you know, they built a diverse manufacturing base out in Fort Smith, many different companies, but unfortunately, through the last decade or so, you've seen a lot of that run off into Mexico. Some of that's coming back to the U.S., but it has hurt the Fort Smith manufacturing base, and so it's showing up in the numbers, as you saw.
You'll be happy to know that I have reported since about the middle of March, there's been 6 job announcements in Fort Smith, and they're all fairly service sector related too. So maybe we'll see some reversal in that trends as we go forward. I noticed that there was nothing in the Burgundy Book that necessarily reflected something I hear from business owners a lot, and that is the impending impact of the healthcare reform, the federal healthcare reform. Have you heard anecdotally from business owners about that? Maybe speak to what you're hearing collectively.
Sure. First, I'd say that I visit financial institutions and businesses across the state of Arkansas on a continuous basis. It's pervasive, that comment that you just shared, and even to the extent that people aren't hiring right now that might otherwise hire because of that employee threshold when the Obamacare kicks in, or the Healthcare Act kicks in. They're just waiting and seeing, not sure exactly how that will, not sure exactly how that will impact their firm, and are unwilling to take a risk to hire more people right now.
You guys, obviously you have a branch here, you have a presence here. Tell me a little bit about what the branch does in terms of interaction with businesses and banks. How can people provide you guys more information? What services can you provide to them?
Well, we've evolved over time. Used to be a manufacturing firm there with checks and cash, kind of a 24-hour operation, and in 2005 that's changed, and our focus is now turned to mostly working on monetary policy issues, collection of data for that process. We do some economic education with K through 12 teachers, kind of a wholesaler there, and then we work with community development groups in low and moderate income communities that relate to the Community Reinvestment Act, trying to bring bankers together with leaders in the low and moderate income communities to find some win-win solutions that can spur on economic activity there.
All right, he's Robert Hopkins. He is the Regional Executive for the Little Rock branch of the Federal Reserve Bank. Thank you for being with us.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Appreciate you.